Hello everyone, I'm Jason. Today I want to share with you an evaluation. This evaluation is mainly based on the Qwen Image Editor 2000, 509 model. This model has just been open sourced recently, mainly because I was using this model recently. I found some uncontrollable results when doing some complicated work. Then I want to say that it may be because I may not be very familiar with some parameters and some basic functions of this model. So I did some such evaluations. Then I will share it with you. Before talking about this evaluation, I would like to recommend a platform to you. Now the requirements for local hardware in this model and workflow are getting higher and higher. Although my evaluation may be able to run some local 8GB or 16 video memory, but it will be very slow. So I need to borrow some online platforms. Then I recommend this platform to Running Hub. What it provides us with is a 4000 9048GB graphics card, enough to cope with most of the workflows on our market. Whether it is a deep map workflow or a deep video workflow, it can be met. And it's relatively fast. It can save us a lot of this time cost. Now it has also launched such a quick creation function. We can provide some free trial credits every day, including this latest powerful model like Nano Banana and Tattoo videos. Tattoo. Some functions such as picture body video. You can come and try it. Of course, I will also share some of my own workflows on one of my home pages. Everyone is welcome to come and try it. That gets back to the point. Now let's talk about this evaluation. First of all, I did this parameter comparison for the first set of evaluations. First, there is a comparison between the old and new nodes, because Xiaoji Brain has also recently opened the source of this new advanced node. Then I see some bloggers or some up-and-up owners. I'm still using these old nodes. That's a bit like a video that includes Xiaoji's own. He used this new node. Then I will be more confused at this time. That is to say, what is the difference between this new node and an old node? Or what is the difference? This is a comparison I made. So what is the comparison below? That is to say, our Xiaoji Brain has also recently matched this Roland with such a consistent one. Then the use or not of this consistent Roland. Does it have any impact on our new and old nodes? Then let's do this and see the effect. First of all, when you don't use this Roland. Let's take a look at this prompt word first. This prompt word turns red in the following picture in image 1. That is to say, a simple color change. Let's take a look at a difference between the old and new nodes. First of all, this old node. Everyone sees this old node. The results it generates are found to be quite consistent. Although he did not use this Roland, it produces this effect very well. Then the new node below. We can see that this consistency is also very strong. That means for some simple color change operations, then our new and old nodes can actually achieve a better effect, although not using rollers. If you use this roller below, we can see that some comparisons have been made. First of all, this old node. This old node. I also divided the evaluation status. One is like turning off this skip switch. The other two. One is fully opened. And one refers to some situations where the above resize switch is turned off. First, let's look at the situation after adding a new and old node to the roller. You can see that it is actually the same as Wuga roller. That is to say, after we add roller, it's not for simple operations. There is not much increase. The following two. One is fully opened, and a case of turning off the above resize switch. We can see that this result has undergone a very huge change. It's almost useless. That is to say, through such an assessment, let's take a look. That is to say, when we are performing a simple processing operation, it can be done whether it is a new node or an old node. If you want to use old nodes, Just turn off the skip switch below. Just don't move the rest. As for the addition of Garola, in fact, it does not affect our use. Now let's take a look at the second set of comparisons. The second set of comparisons is, I did a test like this. That is to say, we have made a simple redraw. For example, include such a color redraw. If I say that in a complicated situation, or in the case of a relatively large movement, whether it can maintain such consistency. First, let's take a look. I've done an evaluation comparison here. Actually, the same as above. I just said that I changed a prompt word here. Turn the prompt word into image one girl holding her chin with her right hand. Such a situation with a relatively large change. See if the same consistency can be maintained. First, let's look at this old node. When skip is turned off, you can see there will still be some consistency error. In other words, our consistency has changed. Let's look at this new node. This new node. You can see if you don't add LoRa. In other words, both of these above are not added with LoRa. Its consistency will still make a big change. That is to say, when the repaint is relatively large. If LoRa is not added, whether it is a new node or an old node, we found that when dealing with a large change, there will be a consistent change. In other words, consistency is not as good as before. The following is a situation after adding LoRa. After adding LoRa, we can take a look. First of all, this old node. You can see that after adding LoRa, this old node, this consistency can be achieved. It achieved a very good effect. Basically nothing has changed. Only one posture of the hand was changed. Then there is this new node. After adding LoRa, you can find that there is no one. It is also consistency that preserves a strong consistency. The effect is very good. The following two are still as always. You can see that when the full core is turned off, even though it was added a LoRa, it's still a very undesirable result. That is to say, through the above two sets of results. Let's take a look. You can see that we are in our daily processing process. It's better to use this LoRa. And use this LoRa. This will do us. Whether it is handling complex situations, or in simple cases, all can maintain a better consistency. Then let's look at the third set of evaluations now. What about the third group of assessments? That is to say, we basically do a single graph processing above. If this kind of double or multi-picture processing is done, what kind of changes will be there? First of all, this prompt word has not changed. For example, the suitcase in image 1 appears in image 2. The girl's right-hand side. Then the girl was walking. I combined this prompt word with one of the two images. Then everyone's evaluation is first divided into two. One is a comparison of the old and new nodes above. Another thing below is. This adds an empty latente situation. Let's wait and see this. First is the first one. That is to say, a comparison between the old and new nodes. It is all the situations that deal with multiple graphs. First, let's take a look at this new node. Everyone sees this new node maintaining the characters, a typical character keeps, including a keeping of an item in this suitcase. Consistency of reduction degree is maintained, including the understanding of prompt words. For example, keep a walking instruction. They are all in a very good condition. That means our new node has some situations in dealing with this double graph. Still better. Let's take a look at this old node. It is when one of the switches of this skip is turned off. We can see. It can also be a better understanding. We walk with a prompt word, including some of our clothing. But you can find that. It's this suitcase, including this face changes quite a lot. Of course, during the previous card drawing process, Sometimes it can be achieved, the same effect as this new node, but the stability is not very strong. Then the two are left. Long time to pull the model. That is to say, whether it comes with single or multiple pictures. When we set up an old node like this, not achieving the effect we want. In other words, we can basically give up such a setting form later. As long as one of the new node and the old node is adopted. Just do it. From this test set. That is to say, our multi-picture. Or in the case of double picture processing. The ability of the new node is stronger than that of this old node. Or it is more stable than the old node. That is to say, I want to think ways. When we use double graph reference, it is best to use this new node and add this LoRa. Now let's look at the situation we are going to talk about just now. This test situation is when we use this node, and when the Xiaoji brain recognizes this node, we can find that we have a latent here that can connect to this sampler. So what is the difference between us and when we pull an empty latent alone? Because, after all, sometimes we want to change the size or aspect ratio of this picture. We may not need such an aspect ratio like a square. For example, if we want to change to 43 or 21, we may need to use the empty latent node at this time. So I did an evaluation here to see what the difference will be between it, and it is directly connected. Because the evaluations I made before are basically directly connected, you can see. Okay, let's take a look at this effect. First of all, this old node. We can see that when using this latent, it is the same as when directly connecting this node without using the latent. You can see that the effect is the same, exactly the same. You can see that the effect of this new node is the same. When the new node above is directly connected to this node, the effect is the same. Then we can draw a conclusion that when we use this latent, the generation effect of our direct connection is actually consistent. Then this is very helpful and can help us adjust the size of the image we want to generate. This is what it came to this conclusion. Then here is a set of comparisons. What about this comparison is mainly that our new and old nodes are, we just evaluated before and found that both new and old nodes can achieve a certain effect. Of course, the new node may be slightly better. Let's take a look now, that is, because some up masters may mention that the strength of our LoRa may have a certain impact on the effect we generate later. Including the snack big brother himself, he also made such a video, that is, our intensity may have a certain impact on our generation effect. So what is the impact? I did this test here. First of all, the two tests used are, the new node and old node we just used, and the old node adopts such a design. Because we have just done an evaluation before, that is, when the old node adopts such a design, a relatively good image will be generated. Although its effect may not be stronger than this new node, we can also get certain effects by drawing cards. First of all, when the LoRa intensity is 1, let's take a look at such an effect. It can be found that at first glance, it seems that when our new node has a LoRa intensity of 1, the effect seems to be very good. However, there is a problem here, that is, our prompt word is actually writing that the suitcase is on the girl's right hand, and it is from the walking position, with hands on the suitcase lever. First of all, the walking posture is not very effective, not very strong. The second is that our face is still different from our original character. In other words, this consistency has decreased. And I don't have a strong understanding of this prompt word. Then look at the old node below. When the LoRa intensity is 1, you can see that you basically don't understand the effect of our prompt word. There is no hand-pulling rod, no walking posture, and it is found that it is a very strange posture when we produce this picture. But it's very strange, which means that it cannot complete a good image generation effect at all. Then the following are some of the evaluations I conducted. First of all, this is our original picture, which is convenient for us to make a comparison in the future. That first of all, when our LoRa intensity is 0.8. When the intensity is 0.8, you can see that it is this model or this new node. When using this new node, we can understand the posture of walking, including a pull rod. But you can find that this face, including this pull rod, has changed to varying degrees. The consistency is not strong, which means that when we use 0.8 LoRa intensity, our new node has begun to understand the requirements of our prompt word. But it may not work well for consistency. Then you can see this old node. When the LoRa intensity of the old node is 0.8, it can be found that this is very poor. The effect is still very poor, and I didn't understand the meaning of our prompt word at all. But its consistency reduction is better. You see some of the situations on this face. Then the next time this LoRa has a strength of 0.6, you can see that at this time, the effect produced by our new node is very good. Including the consistency of its connecting rod, including the consistency of the face, including our understanding of our prompt words, it is still very good. Of course there may be some problems here, that is, it may not be the right hand. It may be left hand, and this may be solved through some card draw situations. Because after all, the model may be different from this. Maybe it's still the ability to understand, but there may be some shortcomings. Then you can see this old node. I also began to understand the feeling of walking, including all the trolleys. That is to say, when we are at this 0.6, both old and new nodes have produced relatively good results to varying degrees. Of course, from the comparison, the effect of this new node is relatively strong. Then here is when the LoRa intensity is 0.4. You can see that the effect produced by this new node is still very good. But you can find this face. Including this tie rod, there have been some changes. Of course, this may be related to card drawing. Or maybe when the model itself reaches this LoRa intensity, maybe the consistency is not that good. Then this old node can't be seen. It basically has nothing to do with the original picture. Maybe I just referenced this suitcase. But this suitcase has also changed a lot. Then the next time is 0.2. When the intensity is 0.2. This new node can still refer to our prompt word and our image. There are still restore pictures, but some of its consistency has changed dramatically. For example, like this face, including this tie rod length has been changed. Then this old node is still falling apart. It is not useful. That is to say, through this, we can know this set of comparisons, whether we use new nodes or old nodes. Of course, the effect of new nodes will be better. The second one is to say, regardless of whether we use new nodes and old nodes, the best LoRa strength we use, it is best to be between this 0.4 and this 0.8. At this time, some of our results may be better. The depth map we produce will have better results. The best time is at 0.6. You can see, at 0.6, new nodes all have different degrees of optimization. Good. So what are the following evaluations? It is when we do some complicated processing tasks. Because some friends would say before the comment section, can this workflow be simplified? Or let some low video memory run. Then this requires us to sample a single process. This can achieve a processing of different complexity. If it can be achieved, this will greatly simplify our workflow. So I also did an assessment here. Then you see, I changed this prompt to, said the model and suitcase in image 1 appeared in a Fushanfang in Zhuangli. In other words, a background change is being made here. Then the model turned into a jump. Put the suitcase on the floor. Such a model and a change in suitcase. That is to say, not only changes our image background, and it also changed the posture of one of our models. When we explained this in the last video, I broke it into 2 workflows to control it. Because if it is broken into 2 workflows to control it, for one of our variables, it is quite beneficial to one of our control variables. But because of the demand, maybe some need in the comment section said that I want some simpler situations. So I said to put it together. Try this effect. Then you can see. This new node understands a prompt word for it, including some changes, including the restoration degree of some items. Still very good. Still very good. But you can find that the face has changed a lot. This is a shortcoming point. Then this is the node. For the node, it can also be a good reference. But it has some parts. In fact, it cannot be understood very well. Of course, this is one that appears in my card drawing. Some of my previous cards. Sometimes this effect can still be achieved. That is to say, in terms of stability, this node is still not as good as this new node. Then such an assessment, we can sum up a conclusion. That is, our new model can be complex. One complicated one at a time. But first of all, it will make a big change to the face, while other parts can maintain a better restoration. In other words, this new model is not friendly to the face when dealing with complexity. The same is true for the following old nodes, which are not very good at handling the face. The following node means that this evaluation means that when we find out above that we are using complex processing tasks, our face actually says that there will be a big change. Can we use such a model to change faces? Getting an answer is very negative. In other words, we want this model to change faces, such as my side, for example, the face that refers to the image in image 2. Then change the face of the girl in image 1 to the face of the human in image 2. In other words, we want to refer to the faces here and then change them to this. As you can see, whether it is a new node or an old node, the old nodes are basically messy. In other words, through the above two reviews, we can know that this model in image 2 is very unfriendly to the face effect. Whether we maintain the restoration level when repainting, or want to change faces, it cannot be achieved. But from the above we can know that it is relatively friendly to items. This is such a conclusion. The following is a complex task for us to carry out a multigraph complex and multigraph reference. Because what we did above were editing some single image. This is a complex task that does a single graph. This is a multi-graph plus a complex task processing. As you can see, no matter whether it is a new node, the composition includes the understanding of prompt words, including some items restoration. It is almost exactly the same as the single picture above. As you can see, it is almost the same. All of them can better understand our prompt words and make a good reduction. But it is the same as in the single image above, that is, the face cannot maintain a good restoration degree. It seems that this model is not enough to restore a small face of this long-term vision. Perhaps when this model used the training set, it might not have done a good job of training for such long-distance faces. Of course, I have also seen another upgroup. This restoration is very good when the face accounts for a large proportion of the image. So when we want to use this model, it is better to use some Photoshops. When you see the old node below, you can see that it is basically completely broken. That is to say, when multiple graphs are added to a complex task, it is basically unusable. It is not useful. Finally, after this series of evaluations, we can actually get such a conclusion. First of all, we should use a new node to perform it, which is the new advanced node open source of Xiaojibrain to perform a processing. It's better. Secondly, we still have to match it with LoRa of such consistency. And when using this LoRa, it is better to use a strength of 0.6 here, which is quite good. Or the amplitude of about 0.6 is quite good. Moreover, such a combination can handle our complex tasks, whether it is a single image. Or is it better to handle such a complex task with multiple graphs? All of them can form a better effect. Okay, that's all for today's sharing. Thank you for watching. Thanks.